Okay, so welcome to Growing Global Networks. This is the second in a series of webinars which aims to create space and time for Charts members, everybody involved with Charts, to get together to share international practices. It's part of a 6-month pilot programme, and this is funded by Creative Scotland and Charts. And the overarching aim is to expand the sense of contexts and the communities and the markets in which Charts members' works thrive. So we're looking to develop and grow pathways towards a more diverse range of routes to viability, whether that's through income streams or collaborations or opportunities to present work. So Growing Global Networks will build from Charts' ethos of co-production. And this process, this programme, we will be doing a lot of listening. We're doing a lot of listening. We're gathering examples of best practice. And we're testing out some new initiatives. And we're also sharing these learnings. So this approach of prioritising the value of how you members are working and processes of professional exchange is a development from an earlier Charts project called Placemakers, Microcluster Networks, which some of the attendees with us tonight took part in, and which Charts Director Kathleen O'Neill formed through dialogue with the steering group, and also produced in collaboration with Michael Johnson from the Glasgow School of Art. There's a lot of information about that website available, about that project available on Charts' website, and I would encourage everybody to have a look at it. And if there are aspects that you think could be useful for your practice, contact myself or Kirsten or any Charts staff members, because it's very much live and evolving. Growing Global Networks is also intended to generate learnings from all of the work that I've described, to assist the future development that Charts will define as suitable for Charts as members. And Charts is currently working very hard and demonstrating the potential for a networked approach towards international working in order to improve the cultural and the economic resilience in the sector in Argyll and Bute. So it's basically the beginnings of very ambitious things. And being the second webinar, what's really exciting to say is that the work done so far in the programme has brought to the surface, has brought out into the open a really diverse range of work that members are doing. And we're starting to find routes for other members to learn about that and to enter into dialogue. So it's really exciting, and I'm very, very pleased that you're all here tonight. So tonight's format is going to start with 3 presentations that'll take us for about 20-25 minutes. And then that'll be the first half. And then the second half will be a discussion. And then the third webinar will happen tomorrow night, when we'll have questions and answers specifically about the opportunities that are available in the Growing Global Networks programme. So our speakers tonight include Kate Davies and Cathy Craig. And I'm absolutely delighted to introduce our first speaker, Nicola Henderson. And Nicola is a freelance arts and heritage professional who's worked in Scotland's culture sector for over 20 years. She's worked as director of 2 of Scotland's leading cultural organisations, Timespan in Helmsdale and the Barn in Bankery. And following the birth of her first child, Nicola has worked freelance in a number of creative projects, from devising and delivering associate artist programmes to managing New Music Scotland and working with the Highland heritage sector on building resilience. She currently works as heritage specialist for Expo North Digital and as the innovation and network manager for Museums and Heritage Highland. So there are 2 roles that overlap in supporting museums to innovate towards a sustainable future. And Nicola also co-runs the Museums Immersive Network with Cornwall Museums Partnership. So she brings a diversity, but a real wealth and a depth of knowledge and expertise, and is going to lead us tonight with her talk. Thank you, Nicola.
Thank you, Deirdre. I'll just share my screen. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Deirdre, for inviting me tonight. As Deirdre said, I'm Nicola Henderson, and I'm here tonight as the heritage specialist for Expo North Digital. And I do work freelance on a number of other arts and heritage projects. And the other main one that overlaps with what I'm speaking about tonight is as the innovation manager for museums in Heritage Highland. A little bit about Expo North, first of all. Expo North Digital is HIE's mechanism for specialist digital support for the creative economy across the Highlands and Islands. It's part of the Northern Innovation Hub, a project funded through the Inverness and Highland City Region deal, and is designed and delivered by Ironworks Venue. We support a variety of different creative industries. So we work with heritage, film and broadcasting, craft, screen and writing as well. So there's a number of different specialisms there, and we support those different sectors through a dedicated programme of workshops, networking events, specialist advice and mentorships. And Expo North offers your business the chance to access insights and support to help you meet your innovation goals. There are many ways to get in touch, and we'd love to hear from you. You can access lots of our past events and workshops on our website, alongside a form which you can complete if you're looking for some dedicated one-to-one advice around digital support at exponorth.co.uk, and I have put the links up in the slide at the end. One of the main projects that I've been working on for Expo North has been our collaboration with Smartify. We wanted to explore how we could grow the global reach of Highlands and Islands museums. And so in year one, we launched the project about this time last year. We have given 6 museums in the region the chance to feature on the world's most downloaded museum app, and a chance to tell their story to audiences all over the planet with support from a digital content creator to help them pull together the content that they need. Smartify has over 4 million users from all over the globe, and those users are our target audience for our museums. They've downloaded the app because they are interested in art and heritage, and we have the stories in our collections and archives to help them meet that need. Smartify is not a free platform, and it comes at a cost to museums, usually only accessed by the bigger museums. That cost is for access to a slick and aesthetically pleasing app, but it's also for the expertise that you access at the organisation, with a highly skilled workforce who have led on creating immersive museum experience for decades, and being able to tap into that support for our museum sector has been invaluable. We were interested in knowing what happens when you connect a tech organisation, usually only accessible to the biggies, with small museums. What kind of innovation was going to happen in that space, and how were we going to reach a more global audience? So over the first year, each museum now has their venue listed on the Smartify platform. The museums that we've been working with have been Stromness in Orkney, Cromarty Courthouse on the Black Isle, Brora Heritage Centre up in Sutherland, Gàidhlig Museum, who won Art Fund Museum of the Year a couple of years ago, and the Highlanders Museum at Fort George. So now that they're on the platform, they're able to any one of their users is able to access a smartphone-led experience for all their visitors and to engage with potential visitors anywhere in the world. The collection they can put on, they can have hundreds of objects on there, and we have worked with them to digitise and upload that, along with the creation of a multimedia tour. Some museums have focused on audio guides, others on using video, and they've worked with different artists and creatives in their communities to help create that content. And we're at the point in the project now where we are working on targeting that content at the Highland diaspora. Smartify will work at a targeted campaign on sending push notifications and emails to app users with interest in this area. And they'll also target that on their social media platforms to help grow and reach those that are not on the app already. So we're interested to see over the next few weeks what kind of difference that makes. And we're also looking at different ways for them to generate income by being on the app, tapping into the global shop and investigating the sale of memberships for museums. The project is very much still in action at the moment, so we don't know the full outcomes yet, but we do know at the time working with the likes of Wouter, who was the digital curator at the Rijksmuseum, have been invaluable in helping museums identify the ways to select the stories they want to tell, frame and shape that narrative, and choose the appropriate digital tools to bring them to life. We want to now see how effectively we can grow the global reach of those museums and heritage organisations, and what difference that will make to the museums and their sustainability. And I'd like to just quickly look at one of the examples here that we worked on with Cromarty Courthouse, which is a small volunteer-run museum on the Black Isle. Alongside adding around 100 objects from their collection to the platform, they created a self-guided walking tour around some of the sites and buildings in Cromarty connected to the slave trade and plantations of the Caribbean and South America. What this tour demonstrates is not only the ability for the museum to get its content online for that audience of over 4 million, allowing visitors to access their stories from wherever they are in the world and open up new relationships, but it also shows the ability to use the platform to explore difficult histories in more depth. And they worked with local writers and creatives in their community to help pull that together. It's led to discussions between museums in America, like the Philadelphia Museums of Art, and also with Lancashire Museum, who are addressing these difficult histories also, and created global conversations and connections in this area, which supports Cromarty in the confidence in the work that they're doing, but helps them all tap into the expertise on addressing these challenges sensitively. We're still in the early stage of this project, but the potential to open up global audiences to small heritage organisations could be transformational. It both allows the museums to engage with visitors remotely so they don't have to travel, and if done well, can lead to memberships being purchased, donations growing, shop items being sold. And a lot of the museums that work with local makers as well are able to put some of those items onto the shop, which are the ones that are of most interest to the Smartify audience. It will help the museums to cultivate a more informed visitor, so that if they do visit in person, they can get more from their time with the museum, personal tours, accessing the stories that they're interested in, and paying for that privilege. So just very quickly, some of the evidence we used to shape the Smartify project came from this collaborative project from the Museums and Heritage Highland Network. 40 museums worked together to create films and high-quality digital imagery of costumes in their stores to tell the stories of these items for visitors who were unable to travel during COVID. The reach of this project was really more than we could have expected, with over 50% of the audience coming from outside of the UK. Thanks to a fairly low-level press campaign, a good social media campaign, and from connecting with historical fashion influencers on the likes of Instagram, the engagement was and still is quite unbelievable and has demonstrated the hunger for Highland heritage across the world. And I've talked through a bit, possibly at pace, the many potential benefits of this approach for the heritage sector in terms of growing its global reach, but it doesn't come without its challenges. It all takes time and confidence in this area. Results will not be quick, and the potential to grow income is a bit of an unknown. But there is evidence that shows that if you do take the time to grow your confidence in creating engaging content, or the confidence of working with artists to help you there if you don't have your own skills there, the skills also in identifying the right platform for you and investing that time, then the rewards could be significant. So these are just some of the links here. And a quick note that we will be opening up the Smartify opportunity to more museums in the next few weeks. So please, if you are a museum or a heritage organisation, keep an eye on the Expo North website, or email me to have an application pack sent to you directly. And there's also lots of more information on the Expo North site for other areas that we support in the creative industries.
Great stuff. Thank you very much, Nicola. That was a very short amount of time to introduce very rich body of work that you and other colleagues have been working on. But I think one of the things that was going through my mind there, the key thing was about the subscribers to Smartify, and Smartify, as well as you said, the slick visual style, the functioning app, etc., etc. Yes, the providing access to these people who have kind of self-categorized. And I don't know how that works, but I'm making the assumption, maybe could you just tell us a little bit, when somebody subscribes to Smartify, do they tick lots of fields to put themselves into a kind of profile?
Yes, you can download the app and have quite a not so in-depth engagement. You could just have the app on your phone and have an empty profile. But if you create a profile, then you have a chance to say where you are, your age, your gender, and what your key interests are, so that any of the in-app notifications, push notifications that are sent to you, and emails around those specific topics are very targeted. And so it helps in the analytics at the moment, where we have the collections up and the tours online. We can get quite rich information behind that as to the kind of people that are accessing their collections and what they're most interested in, what objects are they most looking at, which are not always the ones you'd expect. And that can help you understand a little bit more about your collection as well.
Great stuff. Okay, that's super. Okay, food for thought. Thank you very much, Nicola. Okie doke. Well, I'd like to introduce our second speaker tonight, Cathy Craig. And Cathy is CEO of Argyll and Isles Tourism, which was formed in 2012 as a cooperative from its membership of marketing and tourism groups. And the AITC now represents 1,200 businesses in the region. Cathy leads the continuing growth of the Wild About Argyll brand, and the enterprise and strategy development and implementation of the AITC as a tourism agency. She's an experienced executive with board experience with ScotRail and Visit Scotland, amongst others. And she has specialised knowledge in the trends and forecasting of visitors to Scotland. in marketing opportunities and partnerships which express and promote Scotland's cultural industries. So, Cathy, when you're ready, can you lead us through your presentation, please?
Thanks, Deirdre. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah. Okay, thanks for the opportunity to have a chat with you this evening. For those of you who don't know, Argyll and Bute Tourism Cooperative, we basically, our job is to create awareness of the destination for visitors and to encourage them to come and visit us, and everything that we have to offer. And culture and heritage and arts and makers and producers are a huge part of the visitor offering that we have. When I was asked to think about how we might introduce the topic of internationalization, one of the things that leapt to my mind is about how you use the visitor economy as a route to market. And so in my presentation, I just wanted to explore a couple of different concepts with you. We work with charts, we have done for a number of years. We have a happy partnership. We have done a few projects together. We've done an exhibition of products and arts in London. We've done some Gàidhlig projects. We've done some heritage work. And it's because of that collaboration that we're able to pool our resources. And I mention that because that's one of the tools that you have in your toolkit about how you might reach different markets. So I just want to tell you a little bit more about what we do. So in terms of our primary role is marketing the destination, as I said, and we've got over 400,000 web users. We have a second brand, Love Oban, which is concentrating on Oban and Lawn area, and 50,000 social followers. And I mention that because it's relevant to what I'm going to talk about, one of the routes to market. We represent the needs of tourism, hospitality businesses, and we are all about working in collaboration with businesses to help them produce their goods and how we take them to our visitor economy. So the reason we work in partnership with charts is because we have a common purpose, and the common purpose is to introduce our destination to people for the economic and community benefit of the communities in Argyll and the Isles. And one of the things that working collaboration brings are opportunities that you didn't know existed, and it allows you to partner with people who bring resources and ideas that you might not have in your own right. And I want to stress that because I think this project and other projects that Charts do, projects that AITC do, have thrown up great opportunities that businesses have taken advantage of, and it has helped them to some extent achieve not just financial but social impact as well within their community. So I wanted to touch on a visitor perspective, because visitors, inbound visitors to Argyll and the Isles, they're not only economically important, but they're socially and culturally important as well. International visitors into our region have exploded post-COVID. The prediction was that our international visitors would take 6 years to return in the numbers that we saw from 2019, which is the last benchmark that we tend to look at. It's recovered in 2 years. So currently 97% of the 2019 visitor footprint is back in Scotland, driven largely by the North American market and the European market, driven by a weak pound and pent-up demand, certainly for a period when travel was not possible. China has just put the UK back on the permitted countries to travel to list, so we can expect our Chinese visitors to return. The reason I want to touch on the visitor perspective is because they can become part of your internationalization process. And I'm asking you to stop and think about the visitors to Scotland, to Argyll and the Isles, and what they actually want. And there are a number of key trends that international visitors in particular are choosing Argyll and the Isles as a destination for. So they want to visit destinations that are sustainable and responsible, and Argyll and the Isles happily occupies this space very, very well. They're looking for immersive experiences. So I don't know how many of you got to the Van Gogh Live exhibition. That was really excellent, immersive, different way to present an artist. They're looking for hyperlocal. What do I mean by hyperlocal? So visitors to Scotland have always enjoyed provenance, but they're looking for something deeper than that. They're looking for something that's of the surrounding area, to the point where you can point to the place where things were made and understand the story. And this is a post-COVID effect. It was interesting to hear what Nicola was saying about how COVID sort of taught us to how we open up differently, and the lasting effect of post-COVID is that we have remained open culturally to how we experience things differently. Sense of place is very important to visitors. So visitors want to hear the story of products and how they're made and why they're made and who makes them and how this is important. And all of this can be part of your toolkit of internationalization, should you choose to embrace it. So certain things to have a think about, I would suggest. Who do you want to connect with? So I think it's laying the foundations. This little screen grab I took from our analytics. You don't need to be an analytics expert. There are fantastic freelancers in this space who can support you. And at 11 o'clock this morning, somebody from Indonesia was looking at our website. So it just gives you an interesting perspective of who's interested in your product and what you have to offer, and our product being our destination. So getting some clarity in your own internationalization considerations about which market and where do you want to focus your attention is the first consideration I would suggest. How do you want to connect is really important. And I think there's a couple of different ways. If you think about what I shared with you about what visitors want, highly experiential and hyper-local, tourism businesses in Argyll have been embracing this, and they've been looking at things like visitor trends in wellness and being and immersion. And they've been creating some new and interesting visitor products. And I've got a couple just to chat through to give you an example. So this lady here is Heather. She's a fantastic ambassador for the region. She traditionally has offered walking guided tours, and latterly has been expanding those into foraging, and then very recently expanded that again into foraging, followed by a picnic dining on the products. And then she was at the Food from Argyll food event the other weekend, and she was making nettle pesto. So I give you that example. She's thought about what visitors want, what her product is, and how she might blend different experiences together to create something that's quite unique. So what have you got in your toolkit that could be quite unique? Who can you work with in your network, the Charts network, that might allow you to create something new, unique? The agritourism sector is exploding. And the reason it's exploding is because visitors, and when I say visitors, not just international, these are domestic visitors as well, are looking for experiences that they can get involved with. Our farmers are loving this because they can bring people along to help them with lambing and charge them £125 for the experience. And our farmers are getting helping hand. The product is very simple. There are no airs and graces. They take small groups, they take them into the lambing shed, they show them the lambing experience, they chat to them as they answer questions. It's an immersive experience. They don't dress the place. They don't. It's raw and it's as it happens. And that's what visitors and immersive experiences are about. So again, thinking about if you have a studio or if you have a workspace, visitors want to see the authenticity of that. They want to see the studio that might be a mess. They're not looking for things that are sanitized or neat and tidy and representative. They're looking for something which is very raw and organic and authentic. So think about how you might bring the visitors and into your creation process as part of a visitor experience. And yes, there are certain things you need to think about in terms of, insurance and making sure that visitors are safe. But lots of artists could do this. You don't need to do it every day of the week. You can have one event a month and bring visitors into your experience and charge for it, and people will pay for it. And that's one of the things to think about in terms of being financially sustainable. If you're going to think about a digital channel to market, one of the key things to do is to tell your story and tell it well. So why you, and a lot of artists do this very well, but think about your product. So a lot of makers and producers do a very good job of describing themselves and how they, and a sense of place, but the product sometimes doesn't get the showcase that it might need. So there's a lot of websites that we see out there, particularly when we're trying to promote the destination through our artists, makers, producers. There's not enough information about the actual product themselves, and it makes it hard for people to access, and it makes it more difficult for us to showcase. So what do you have to offer? Why a piece of art? And create intrigue, but don't make it so inaccessible that people can't get a grasp of what it is that you're about. I love this little example. I don't know if it'll work. So this is Hayshed Gallery. Hayshed Gallery is a great artist gallery. It's part of collaboration. There is Eve, the coffee maker, is based in the Hayshed Gallery. It's based in Kerry Farm in Tinnabrook. And this social media is just very simple. And I don't know if it'll play. It's literally seconds. Just want to show you if it'll work. So it was really just to show you that that type of content is highly engaging and is seconds, but draws in a lot of people. I've lost how my presentation is now. Okay, so it's very simple but highly engaging content. If you're going down the digital route, can be a very important part of telling your story. And little clips like this, it doesn't need to be anything more dramatic than that, can really help tell your story. In isolation, that won't make much sense, but if you start to engage with a brand, then those small pieces can really hook people in. Other things to have a think about: if digital is one key way to get to an international audience, think about your customer funnel. So jobs like creating awareness of your product or your brand in the first place, that's too hard for you to do on your own. It's really hard. So that's where you would use your partners like Charts, like AITC, Creative Scotland, whoever it is. So use your partners who have already gained the audience. So I mentioned that we've got 400,000 web users. So let organizations like ours and like Charts do that job for you, because that's really difficult to start doing. And you want to spend time creating your product, not creating lots and lots of social media content. However, once organizations like ours have created that interest, this is where your website, Facebook, Instagram platform, whatever you're using, needs to work for you. And what it needs to do in the customer's journey, if you like, is lead them to a purchase, particularly if you want to do e-commerce. And I think stand back and ask yourself from an international point of view, are you easy to do business with? So does your website, Facebook, Instagram, Etsy, whichever channel you're using, does it provide the buyer with everything that they need? And sometimes when you're the seller, it can be hard to stop and think about what the buyer actually needs. This lovely lady here, Seadrift Pottery, based in Argyll, I think is an excellent example of a website that really works for the buyer. Can everybody see the website? Just make sure that's working. Yeah. So the reason I like this is there's an introduction to the artist, but everything that a buyer wants to know or is interested in is where you can find it. So there is an online shop, so I can buy the pieces that I want. She runs immersive experiences, so I can go along and I can have a go at wheel classes and pottery. And I do recognise that not everybody can offer that, but if you can offer a small immersive product, it really does help with that audience. There's obviously the gallery and the way that the pieces are presented. And I really love the way that on different pieces that there's often an explanation of why the piece is important and the sense of place. So she talks about how that piece relates to Argyll. And that really connects with people, visitors and potential buyers and your potential market. So I think it's a really nice example of how to do it well. And if you want to sell internationally, a few extra things to have a think about. It's not a side hustle. It does take quite a lot of time and effort, so you do need to be committed to it. Continuous intelligence is key, so know your market. So who is it that you want to sell to, and what's your cultural awareness? So our Scottish cultural awareness and heritage won't necessarily translate in France or Germany, so you need to think about how your message translates into the markets you want to sell to. Look at who does it well. I've shared there. Angel Share Glass is a bit of a kind of Scottish success story. This is an artist that's created glassware and has really succeeded in an international market. Think about cost to scale your product. It will cost you in terms of time, energy, effort, collaboration. Who can support you? So internationalization is not easy, and I'm sure we'll hear from our next speaker, ways in which it works and ways in which it doesn't work. How can you use the partners? How can you use charts? How can you use the mentoring, the support they offer, the webinars that they offer, services that Argyll and Bute Tourism Cooperative offers? There's a lot of resources out there. It's getting hold of the right resource for the right job to help you. So I hope that's been useful, a bit of a flash tour from a visitor perspective, thinking about that as a way to develop your product internationally.
Yeah, that's really, really useful, Cathy. Thank you very much. That felt like a kind of super intense introductory tutorial. That was absolutely fascinating and just so practical and so clear. Lots of questions and lots of thoughts there, but it was just helpful the way that you described and enabled us to think around from different perspectives coming in, and also these practical step-by-step resources that you gave us at the end. So thank you very much. And please remember, as Charts members, you can come to us to ask those questions, as Cathy's indicated, as Kathleen's indicating in the chat as well. We can either signpost or we can, particularly in the Growing Global Networks programme, we can arrange one-to-one or group sessions with mentors and specialists for you. Okay, so thanks again, Cathy. That was really rich and really helpful. And that leads us, as you very clearly indicated, on to our third speaker, Kate Davies. So Kate is, she's a knitter, a designer, an author, a publisher, and many other things as well. And her practice is based just north of Glasgow and in Argyll. And her work is enjoyed by people worldwide. So she established Kate Davies Designs in 2010, and from her one-woman beginnings, Kate Davies Designs has grown into a company which now encompasses many different aspects of publishing, design and creative practice here in the West, rooted in the west of Scotland. With her collaborators, her work combines the critical with the creative, the thought-provoking with the practical. And in 2015, KDD began to develop their own brands of yarn for hand knitting, and in 2017 launched their own knitwear line and collections of designs and patterns, championing sustainable manufacturing and locally produced yarns. So parallel with her textiles and patterns, KDD has produced over 20 publications which explore the human stories of Scotland's landscape and built heritage. And these include Inspired by Isla and Argyll's Secret Coast. So Kate's just going to tell us a little bit more about that practice and who your clients are as well. Welcome, Kate.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Deirdre, for inviting me. I'm really happy to be here. I found last week's presentations really inspiring, and today's equally so. And I think what I've got to say will probably feed on nicely from what Cathy was talking about. So yeah, before I start, I just want to give a shout out to my husband, Tom Barr. He's our in-house photographer, and he's responsible for all of the beautiful imagery in the presentation that I'll show now. So this is me. I'm Kate Davies, and I'm the director of a small creative business. We currently employ 5 people, and we publish 2 or 3 books each year. And we also manufacture our own yarn ranges, as Deirdre was saying, using fleeces from Shetland and the rest of Scotland. And these are spun for us in mills. At the moment, we're using a Yorkshire mill and an Irish mill to spin our yarns. And we try to use the commercial success of our business to support different kinds of creative endeavour. And our practice is built on a love of, an interest in, and an engagement with Scotland's landscape, culture and history, and particularly the landscape and culture and history of Argyll. And our practice is reliant upon the ability to communicate that love and that engagement effectively to a global audience. And that's because 70% of our audience is outside of the UK. That's quite a large proportion, I think. So how do we reach that audience? Well, we reach that audience by combining the digital with the physical. And we developed our online audience, our online community, through various means, and through a blog, which I began in 2007, through a newsletter, which goes out monthly, promoting our activities and the products that we're selling and the projects that we're exploring. Through online forums, we have a very active online forum on Ravelry, which is a kind of knitters social network, for those of you who don't know about that. And through digital products such as ebooks and e-patterns, which are downloadable PDFs, and online tutorials, and through our clubs and subscriptions, which knitters really enjoy. These are very popular. So our audience is built around quality content through long reads, slow process, and meaningful engagement. Because for me and for the rest of the people I work with, really, digital spaces are nothing without the world of things. And for us, that's the highly tangible realm of books and knitting, of reading and making things. And both of these things are things you can't rush, really. Knitting is not something you can speed up, and neither is reading. So how does this work in practice? I'm going to give you 2 examples. This is an example from 2022. This is a project that we all really loved working on, Argyll's Secret Coast. And this project began life as a sort of digital magazine in which lots of local people were involved, historians, artists, writers. Some of the artists actually that appeared in Cathy's presentation from the Hayshed gallery were involved in this project with us, both as contributors and as models, as you will see later on. So the project begins life as the digital magazine, and this goes out to subscribers every week, and subscribers will receive like essays and photography and short films and different craft projects, all of which are exploring a different creative approach to the Cowal Peninsula. And these installments are inspired by everything from Neolithic archaeology to much more recent graffiti art. And so throughout the course of this 12 weeks, subscribers all learn about Cowal through their subscription, this sort of interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary range of content. And at the end of the subscription, they receive a beautifully produced actual physical book in the post, which we ship out to them from our warehouse here in Clydebank. And then wherever they are in the world, subscribers enjoy knitting projects that are inspired by Cowl's landscape. And on the left here, you see one of my designs. This is the Kerry Kyle blanket, which I had the ridiculous idea of photographing inside David Blair's wonderful ark, which sits above Tír na Bruach. So there's a picture of that. And then on the right-hand side here, you see a blanket that one of our wonderful knitters who's here tonight, I think Courtney Rickman. Hi, Courtney. Courtney knit this blanket, and she used different Scottish yarns to make it. And then she entered it in the Orange County show in California, where it won first prize. Yeah, so there's a tangible physical thing that has been made from somebody engaging with the history and landscape of the Cowal Peninsula through our project. And some of the people who engage with that project then eventually come and visit Cowal. And here's a group of German knitters who've come to visit Tír na Bruach, and they're sitting in the wonderful ark, overlooking the Cowals of Bute and enjoying the landscape while they're knitting. So Argyll Secret Coast is a project that begins with the digital and then ends with the physical. But a project that I'm working on right now works the other way around. So it begins with the physical and ends with the digital. So I've created a knitter's advent calendar, and subscribers receive a box, and the box contains 24 different coloured balls of yarn, which they all enjoy opening through every day of December until December the 24th, when they open their last package and they unwrap a golden ticket, and that has a QR code on it. And using the QR code will give them access to a digital ebook, to a range of tutorials and resources, which will help them knit a range of garments and accessories with all these beautiful colours of yarn that they'll have been enjoying throughout December. So I looked at my last newsletter, and it went out to 63 different countries. That's the range of countries that subscribe to our newsletter. But I would say that it's really a core of about 30 different countries that we export our books and our yarns to. And really, why work internationally? This is the question that Deirdre asked me to address. Well, why work internationally? Because I think it's really important for us to share what's so special and so distinctive about Scotland's landscape, Scotland's textiles, and Scottish culture with the rest of the world. I really believe that's incredibly important. And here are some examples of me doing that from my recent books. This is Michael, who I think he works with Eve, with Argyll Secret Roast, the coffee makers, out of the Hayshed Gallery, and he was one of the models in our Argyll Secret Coast project. Helen Robertson is a fantastic Shetland artist who appeared in our book about Shetland wool. Deirdre Nelson, who I'm sure many of you will know, a wonderful textile artist, and Ella Gordon, both of whom have featured in some of our books. And these are some very inspiring, creative, visible menders working in a Glasgow workshop from our book, People Make Glasgow. And this is where it all begins, really, with the sheep, with the wool and the sheep, with this beautiful lamb, a Shetland lamb from my friend Chris Dyer's croft. So just to conclude, for me, it's an honour to share creative work from Scotland with enthusiastic and interested people around the world. This is what makes me tick and what I'm all about. Because this work expands knowledge, it develops meaningful cultural engagement, and it encourages other creative work in turn. So it encourages other people to be creative. So that's it. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for listening. Oops.
Wonderfully inspiring, Kate. Thank you very much. And so much. Each of our 3 presentations has been so rich. There was so much in there. I was wondering about your master planning process, actually, because when you present your work, you make it sound simple and focused, but actually there's just so much collaboration and such a diversity of different practices and processes in it. So absolutely intriguing. Thank you very, very much. So we're just going to take a couple of minutes to reflect on the 3 presentations. And I would like you now, everybody here, to think about the second half as much more participatory and collaborative. The three presentations have been very inspiring, but what we'd like to achieve tonight is to hear your thoughts and your questions. And as I said at the beginning, help us form the right kind of collective representation of your interests in international work. So just my own reflections on the presentations were that each of them has highlighted how important it is and how they're motivated to build upon this shared love of Scotland's landscape, culture and history. And the presentations have given us indications towards the resources available, as well as case studies from which we can learn. And they've provided a range of perspectives from the customer or consumer, as well as the maker and the producer. So what I'd like to ask you to do is just start to think about the questions that you have for us. You can either put them in the chat, or Kirsten's about to give you a link, I think she just has done, to a Jamboard for those who are comfortable using a Jamboard, where you can write your question either anonymously or with your name if you're not keen on speaking out. And of course, you can just turn your mic on and chat with us. So if we just take a minute or two, if anybody would like to have a comfort break as well, please take this opportunity. Okay, does anybody want to start off with a question? Please just pop your mic on or put your hand up.
Could I ask a question? I find it easier than putting it in the chat, please. So I have a query about, I work as a painter actually, so that's my sort of main focus. And one of the areas that I find a bit challenging is to do with actually sending work over, like within what was the European Union, but is actually, and just is there any experience of actually that sort of as a barrier with any of the speakers? I had someone who bought a piece of work from Holland. He's still not got it actually, because we're wondering, because it's actually the tax that's actually due in it if we actually send it. So any tips around that would be really helpful.
Seeing you nodding, Kate.
Well, I can talk about how horrendous it is post-Brexit to deal with those things. It really is difficult. We had to register for the IOS scheme, which is, you know, as an individual artist, I'm not sure if that's in your interest to do that. So I had to do that. And then I also had to get an accountant in Dublin, a separate accountant to my normal British accountant, to be able to continue building my European markets and sending stuff out to my European customers. But it's, what can I say? It's absolutely horrendous post-Brexit. Dealing with customs, dealing with the duty, or just dealing with the just ridiculous impediments that have been put in our way. I really do sympathise. It's very difficult, but what can I say? It is possible. We have managed to do it, and I have managed to continue growing my European customer base. But I would also say that there's a growing digital market for EU customers. What's happened to us post-Brexit is that our physical goods have gone down to the EU, but our digital sales have gone right up. So yeah, I do sympathise, and I hope your canvas and the piece of work arrives successfully with at its Dutch destination. Yeah. If you want,
he's interested in whiskey. Actually, he wants to go to Ireland again, so he's going to come and collect it, I think. So, yeah.
If you want to talk about that, or have any, if you ask me about it, please just send me an email. I'm happy to assist in any way I can.
Thank you very much.
Can I ask Cathy? I'm thinking about Business Development Scotland. Cathy, do you think, because they Leslie, I don't know if you've looked at the Business Development Scotland website. So they have a long list of specialists on. Sorry, are you nodding? You have looked?
No, I'm nodding. That sounds a good idea. I'm saying.
Yeah, they have a long list of specialists. And Cathy, I know that the AITC has done some work with them. I'm not sure the extent to which. So I don't know if you have any comment to make about whether Business Development Scotland might be a useful direction to go in. If not, please don't.
I think there's a number of potential sources. SCDI might be another organisation as well, which can help. I think one of the things that I can do with charts is signpost to different resources in terms of where you might go for support. So because it is a tricky area and there are things to consider. And that's one of the points I was making about, you need to be clear about what market you want to sell to for your experience, Leslie, which is, be aware of what you're getting yourself into. You can make it nice and easy for yourself. But there is help and resources out there, and I think we can gather some links and signposting together, which might help you.
Thank you.
That's great to see that, Cathy. Thank you very much for that. Good.
Can I also just chip in, Leslie, to say that in our 3-year business plan, we're looking at supporting our members with commerce and the idea of collective commerce. So, when Kate inferred there about the possibility of, off-putting costs around certain things, just to let you know that there'll be further exploration of that a little bit down the line. But this is one example of how every project tries to, soak up what the members are saying. So I'd be very interested to talk to you around that as well.
Great stuff. Nicola, I see you nodding. Is there anything that you want to contribute to that, or?
No, I'm just agreeing. I know that we've had shared problems in those that have been selling a lot, and even with some of the platforms where our museums have put shop products on or from local makers and things, they've had real challenges with how they send them out. So no, I'm just agreeing. I think like Business Development Scotland and organisations like that can maybe help with some advice, but I don't have anything else to add.
Well, I've noticed one of the questions is, my practice involves publishing. How do I reach international markets? And in my mind, that's slightly linked from Leslie's comment as well. And it might be useful just to take a minute to ask some questions about that connection between, obviously, Kate, you talked about publications, but we also have Meeks Van Born here with us tonight, who has been working with publications. And I wonder if we could just take a minute or two to ask you guys to just share your comments and experience, and certainly any advice that you might wish to impart to us about not just getting the book to the customers, not just in making sure that customers are aware of the publication, but the practicalities of working with publishers. Kate, do you want to start us off, and Meek, that might give you a wee minute to just drag you in and put you on the spot there, but
I'd be very interested to hear what Meek has to say. I suppose I'm lucky in that I have a range of experience, and I had a lot of range of experience with publishing before I started my own business. So I have experience in academic publishing and different kinds of academic publishing as well. So I'd worked with publishers previously. And by the time it came for me to produce my own book, I realized that there wasn't a publisher out there who was going to produce the kind of thing that I wanted to make, because I wanted to make a book that combined a kind of how-to book, a practical craft book, with historical essays. And so there just wasn't a market. So basically, I just went down a self-publishing route. So what can I say? That's not for everybody, because you need capital behind you to be able to do that. But I managed to do that by selling a lot of digital products. I sold a lot of digital products to fund the production of the physical books, and now I produce all of my physical books here in Glasgow. I managed to find a printer that actually treats me as a small publisher with the same respect that he would treat a much larger corporate client, and that has been a fantastic find for me. They're Bell and Bain publishers and printers in Glasgow, and if anybody is self-publishing their own, setting up their own self-publishing enterprise, I would really, really recommend them. They're wonderful. So I'm not sure if Meek wants to say anything about actually working with commercial or non-commercial publishers, as opposed to setting up your own publishing company, which is the route I ended up going down. So I'll shut up now and Meek.
Yeah, hello everybody. Thank you, Kate and Nicola and Cathy, for your inspiring presentations. Yeah, maybe starting with the thought that international sounds always a bit far away and big and scary, but actually we have me working with a lot of people from elsewhere, and also our residency in Gàidhlig, who has a lot of international residents. It's actually international is not far away. You can just ask your neighbor and he will know somebody who speaks another language or is from somebody somewhere else, and then the whole process starts of translating and getting to know each other. And I think I heard it a few times tonight, like it's all about meaningful engagement and deeper connection. So my first book started really with finding a poem that I liked or that I wanted to translate to Dutch, and then working with a poet or myself being translated, working with a translator, as just printing a small booklet and binding it myself, and then sharing it with friends, and then suddenly it's picked up by a magazine, and then so my work is mainly writings, but also drawings and photos. So yeah, I did quite a lot of like unique books, but also find a subject which is also very Scottish, and that is seaweed. And so yeah, that's maybe also something to share, is that the more you work with other people that speak another language and that come from somewhere else, the more knowledge you can collect, and the more images you can share, and the more you can build up a relationship that is inspiring for not only the person who you collaborate with, but also with your audience. And sometimes it's just maybe a few people, but that doesn't really matter to me. So what I can say maybe to finish this is that I wrote this book about, actually it was really the Scottish seaweed that almost like invited me to write it, because I was so fascinated by the seaweed. I found it so beautiful and crazy and dynamic and supple and all these things. And so I wrote it in Dutch, and then it got translated. I'm very lucky to find a German translator in German, and then that book is being translated in English, and the book became wiser and brighter as well, because working with translators and publishers really did it grow, and for me, it's all about that, to find ways to connect and to build up these stronger relationships.
Nori, I can see you've got your hand up. Nori, I'm just about to ask you to speak, but if I could just interrupt slightly just for a second, just to say that we, as part of the programme that I've just mentioned, but I would like to repeat that we're asking you to send us in your questions that you might have for a mentor or a specialist with international practice. And this is a really, really good example. So you could obviously ask for any of the speakers tonight, or you might ask to meet with Meek, or Nicola has also added a comment in the chat as well about pitching work, and there are resources that you can find on Expo North. And you've also mentioned Peter Urpeth, who can offer one-to-one advice. So again, that's what we're doing in this programme. We're offering a number of different routes so that to make sure that you can find way, but what we need you to do is to tell us about your areas of interest. So I just wanted to punctuate for a second, just to remind you that we're inviting you to come forward, email your questions or follow the link that Kirsten is putting in and sharing with everybody. So just going back to publishing, that in itself might be something that you ask to have access to a specialist or a one-to-one, and once we get your requests, we can either organise it as a one-to-one or a group dialogue, depending on what that is. And we've had some conversations, for example, about your various relationships with different publishers, and how also some of them might sound like they're fantastic because you're getting great distribution, but it depends on the terms of the contracts as well. And that takes us back to what Kate was saying earlier about self-publishing perhaps being a valuable, a useful route to go through, because it means that you are kind of liberated from the complexities that other routes might give. But of course, there are different undertakings in that. So a lot of complexities around publishing, and there are a lot of people working, an increasing amount of people working with publishing, and we have expertise that we can link you with. So really a lovely opportunity just to try and describe what we're trying to achieve here tonight. Nori, I don't know if I've made you lose your thread, but if you've got another question connected, because obviously you're working with a lot of publishing as well.
Yeah, and I have worked in the past with Peter Urquhart through High Arts originally, I think it was, but then subsequently Expo North, and he's an excellent mentor and encourager of writers. My questions are really mainly to Kate. I was quite astonished when she told us that she would produce a digital magazine once every week for 12 weeks. And as someone who does, a newsletter and maintains a website and so forth, you must have a team of people doing that in order to produce a weekly digital magazine for a wide audience. That was how do you manage it is my first question. And the other question I have is it relates very much to self-publishing, and because I'm looking at this at the moment, and I'll just say from a fairly experienced writer's point of view, both of my previous books were published by a large Edinburgh publisher, one of the largest in Scotland. But the simple outcome of that is that for a £10 book sold in a bookshop like Waterstones or whatever, the writer gets 40 pence. So a lot of writers, I think, are under the illusion, oh, we've got an agent, we've got a publisher, but what rewards do you get for that? And I don't think it's about that I was inexperienced at negotiating with a publisher. They just tell you, well, that's the best we can do. So I think a lot of writers are going the self-publishing route. Yep. And my question to Kate is, did you go through Draft to Digital, for example, who do all the typesetting and the cover? They put out the book for free, and they take 10% of the sales at the end of, on Amazon or other Kobo or other outlets. Did you do that, or did you have some other way? Did you pay editors? Did you pay the covers and that kind of thing?
So here's what I would say. In 2018, I was approached by an agent in London to produce an autobiographical text. I went down and I met with them. They negotiated a contract with a fairly major publisher, but the terms of it were so poor that I just thought, I'm not going to do this. I'm just going to do it myself. And by that point, I had enough expertise in-house, and my husband then taught himself how to create, books in InDesign. So to do the graphic design ourselves, he taught himself to do that. And I worked with a very experienced editor in Edinburgh, who's a friend of mine, who works incredibly professionally, producing a lot of academic journals. So I had enough expertise in-house really to be able to do that. And then, I went ahead and I produced the book myself. And what can I say, Nori? The rewards, both in terms of having control over your own creative process, over control over the product, control over the markets that it's going to, control over the way it's being promoted, that, you know, there's just no comparison really. And you can do it professionally and to a very, very high standard, and you can have a beautiful cover and you know, and beautiful illustrations exactly how you want it, you know, without having to go through arguing the toss continually with publishers. So you've just got to take it seriously, which I'm sure you already do, and be professional about it, and you can, yeah, it's just a much more rewarding process, both financially and creatively. So I would never go back actually to working with a commercial publisher. Yeah, that's my personal experience. Yeah, there was another part to that, and I've forgotten what it was now. At the beginning,
digital magazine.
Yeah. Well, yes. This involves an immense amount of work, and yes, we do have to have, everybody has to be on board, and it involves a lot of preparation, and to roll it out week on week, everybody is totally focused for 12 weeks. But I think the experience for everybody, as long as you have enough preparation time and you can get that out, is really genuinely very good. So I got all the historians together. They all produced all their work in advance. All the imagery was produced in advance, the patterns, the photography. We did little short films of the area with a drone. All of these, everybody produced that stuff in advance, and then it was bang, bang, bang every week. Courtney can testify to that. It comes out every week, and then you get the book at the end, and then obviously we have to submit the text of the book to the printer probably about 6 weeks in advance for that to be able to start shipping out to folk in the US in time for the end of the club. Yeah.
You build your mailing list as you went with that, and
yes,
by digital means, and that
yeah.
Then gives you a market, and you built your own market through.
Exactly. And I think what Nicola was saying earlier about having time and investing the time and having the time and the confidence and investing that, I think that as she's shown with the Highland Threads website, which is absolutely wonderful. I think it's just a wonderful example of how anyone in the world could engage with a really unique object in a small Scottish museum. I just think it was just absolutely stellar example of that. But as she's shown with that, yeah, I think you've just got to keep on investing the time and putting the stuff out there. Yeah.
That's very helpful. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Nori and Kate. And yes, please send us the questions that you have so that you can have an opportunity to really investigate these in more detail. I'm aware of the time, it's 7:15, and I'm looking at the question board, and we've got a couple here, a small handful that we haven't addressed. There's a question about shipping internationally to the EU. I have some resources that I can share there without going into detail for the whole group just now. So I'm not sure who sent that message, but if you could share with me or Kirsten your question again, then we'll send you information on that. There's a question here which is, how do I know who is coming to Argyll? What are the reasons visitors are coming? How can I tap into this to increase sales? So Cathy, you touched on that in your presentation, but I think that's a really helpful piece of information for us to have access to. Is there a source that people can go to see the, whatever it's called, the demographics or the analysis of the visitors, or future trends, predictions?
Yeah, so that's the sort of information we share with our members.
Right.
It's quite high level, and some of the information that we have is lag data, so it's people that have been. But in terms of the future trends, wellness, immersive experiences, and hyperlocal are the big kind of trends at the moment. So in terms of who's coming, technically, because they're an audience, as Kate quite ably demonstrated, people that connect digitally do then want to go and visit the place where they've connected with a product. So your Google Analytics, if you've got a website, can help you understand that. And that's, we monitor who's looking at our website, where are we penetrating? So outside of, actually we have more followers in London than we do in Glasgow, which is quite interesting. And then looking at the US market and then saying, well, what are they searching for? So digital data is more up to date quite often than the data that we get from the council, etc.
In terms of how we access that information, is that so? If somebody becomes a member of AITC, do they get access to kind of reports or commentary?
Well, it's not kind of live data. What we'll do is so for example, I recently went to the UK Inbound conference in Belfast where I got all of the kind of, these are the trends of the inbound stats about the visitors that are coming, and then I will share those with our members.
Right.
And things come up. A recent Expedia report came out that said 80% of people booking through Expedia were looking for sustainable destinations. So it's finding, I curate, I guess, these the research and then feed it out to our members for them to access whatever it is that they're looking for. It's not a data service as such. It's more of a, this is interesting, think about this, and you might want to access this data source. I think Kathleen's wanting to add to.
Yeah, I was just going to highlight again, Cathy, that in our developing relationship, and Charts is a member of your organisation, and I was just wondering, because there's such a particularly interesting conversation, and I'm sure we could talk all evening, this group, it's been absolutely fantastic this evening. I was just wondering, might there be potential for you and I to discuss how we might offer to Charts members maybe a gathering like this every couple of months or every 3 months? Not a big deal, just that we do it, we just advertise it and see who wants to come along, who's interested in the visitors, and just to continue this conversation between the organisations, because I think as we've talked about often, and it's only resource that stops us, I think, not short of ideas, there's lots of ways we could partnership together, and we still need to find out what the members need and what they're interested in, so that we can start to resource them together. So I think if Deirdre, if we could maybe look at that as well, that would be a really interesting way to move forward from tonight. And we can talk about that, how many times a year or what that might be. That would be fantastic, actually.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to have you here, Cathy. Sorry, were you going to reply? Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, very happy to have that conversation. I think one of the most frustrating things for me in terms of presenting the destination is there are so many fantastic products and artists and provenance that we create, but they're hidden. That like we, Kathleen and I and all of our colleagues are not hearing about them. So my big ask is, please step forward and tell us about the events, the workshops, the new products, the experiences that you're offering, because we can amplify. Remember that we talk to 400,000 people who want to visit and want to engage. I don't know how many Charts website followers, I'm sure Kirsten will let us know, but by just telling us 2 people, we can probably talk to 500,000 other people and tell them about your product. But you need to let us know, and that's my big ask. Tell us what you're creating, work with each other, collaborate, create interesting experience, or just ask us, or just say, I'm thinking about creating an experience looks like this. Do you think visitors would like that? And we can share our opinion, help shape your thinking. The mentoring that Charts is offering is a fantastic service. Please engage with these resources, and they can be very helpful.
Great stuff. That's really positive. Thank you very much, Cathy. Thank you. So it's 20 past, and I think there's one more question. If I haven't answered your question tonight, please, we're taking a note of the questions, but in a minute we will guide you towards the simple questionnaire that we're going to ask you to upload all your questions on and your contacts. So please make sure that you make that link with us. But I think we'll draw things to a close with a different kind of question, but I think a useful one to think about, basically the channels between the people you're reaching and what you're providing. And the question is, how important is social media to reach international audiences? Is there something more sustainable, or are there any tools that will make my website more accessible? So, you know, we've talked about all of the presentations indicated towards and gave examples of the role of the digital data, the platforms. So it feels appropriate to focus on that as our last question. Is there anybody particularly would like to respond to that? I know, Kate, that you had some comments that were made previously about the pros and cons or how it works.
Yeah, I just prefer, because our audience are interested in slow products and slow experiences, I think it just works much better for us to be producing things in a long form way. You know, so through blogging mostly, rather than through the kinds of instantaneous, more consumer-driven forms of engagement that you would get through social media. And that's not to knock that at all. I think that that's really important. But I have to say that I enjoy building engagement in a slightly more meaningful, long-form way. And all I want to say is that it's possible. It's possible to do that. Yeah.
Blogging is a bit like giving content for free in a way. It's
absolutely,
like
absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly it. If you like writing, like I do, and if you like expressing yourself on paper, then you can do that online, and you're basically giving little bits away for free. That's exactly what you're doing. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Nicola, do you have any? Thanks, Kate. Do you have any comments on the role of social media in reaching audiences?
I do find it's a really vital tool for a lot of our museums and heritage organisations to reach those audiences. It can be really targeted, and we found, especially during COVID over the last few years, when they were trying to communicate in new ways, that they were able to reach those audiences and deepen those engagements, and provided that they were really thinking about those stories and giving a real connection to those stories, and that drove that engagement. And they started to see the numbers on their platforms really start to grow, because there was a real empathy there with the stories, a real connection. And once that starts to grow and you see the kind of snowball effect, then you've got a real kind of target audience there for promoting, whether it's the work that you're doing and the collections and stories that you're trying to sell, or whether it is looking at crowdfunding and different things, because you're more likely to be able to make a positive ask there. So I do find that it is quite a necessary tool for our museums, and within their space, working a rural organisation, working quite isolated to try and reach out and connect with others. And one thing I was just about to pop in the chat there in terms of accessibility was the organisation Vocalise. I think that they're really good. I'll pop the link in a second, in terms of helping you make sure that you think about how a website is really accessible for anybody that may be visually impaired and looking to access your content. And yeah, I find their advice invaluable.
Great. Yes, lots and lots to think about there. And I'm just, one of the things that's running through my head is about how an organisation such as something called Stromness Museum would be findable through social media channels in ways that would be different than individual practitioners called Deirdre MacKenna cultural experience. So there's something to think about there about getting lost, or you know, differentiating themselves. So labeling and branding, that's running through my head. Okay, there's lots of really useful, practical, generous comments in the chat at the side. Thank you very much for everybody who has commented in there. I would like to draw things to a close, but I'd like to ask if anybody has any other comment or question that they really want to share before we do. Kirsten will capture the comments for us and share them with everybody. And I would like to share screen for a minute and actually just show you the form that we are inviting you to complete. So Kirsten is about to share the link in the side. Please make a copy of it, but of course, if you go onto the charts website, you'll find it. So this is the little form that we're asking everybody to just simply, it introduces, in the same way I did tonight, the Growing Global Networks programme. There's a set of questions that are just pointers. You can click them, click off them as you like. You can click as many of them. But crucially, please write your own questions. Let us hear what it is that you would like to discuss with a specialist, an international mentor. And if you have somebody specific in mind, please let us know who that is. The rest is simply asking for your permission. It's very simple, very straightforward. And if we could just encourage you, please, to share the link that Kirsten has put in the chat with you amongst your colleagues and collaborators, and let them know about this opportunity. It's quite new. It's open until the end of the month, and we just look forward to hearing from you. So thank you very much. So thank you again to our speakers, to Kate, to Cathy, to Nicola. It's been really lovely hearing all your presentations. You've really reified, you've rendered tangible lots of those nuanced but absolutely crucial aspects in making it all work. And the questions have helped us think around that in different ways. So I hope it's been useful for everybody. I hope we hear lots more from everybody who's here tonight. And please join us tomorrow night. There's a question and answer session, just a discussion around the growing global networks opportunities. So thank you very much again. And we're waiting to hear from you. Great stuff.